Hello, my name is Raelan, and I have a really amazing interview for you today. It's with a woman here in the US named Ginger Schultz. And although she's not fully recovered, she has come so far. She is almost there. She's made amazing strides with her health, and she's had really quite a long journey with facing chronic fatigue and many different chronic health conditions. So I learned a ton. You'll see in this interview, she brings up so many times, have you heard of this? Did you know about that? And I hadn't heard of any of it. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. It's a really inspiring story. She's a really incredible person, and she just has a lot of information and ideas and insights to share. And it's really moving how much this whole experience, as difficult as it's been, has transformed who she is as a person, and how much she shares, how much she's grown, and how much she is even appreciative for, the way it's transformed her life. So yeah, let's dive right in. Hey Ginger, it is so nice to finally, officially meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Yes, thanks. Thanks for contacting me. I'm excited.
Yeah. And I know a bit about your story, but I don't know tons. So I'm excited. I'm going to learn a lot just at the same time as everybody else who's watching this.
Right.
So yeah, why don't we just jump right in? I mean, we're here obviously to talk a bit about your health journey. How did this all begin for you? Or what did life look like before you started facing these health challenges?
I always find it really hard where to start with this.
Agreed.
I will tell you a few things. Before I had this acute thing that happened to me, which was last year at the end of February, I was a massage therapist for 14 years and working my butt off. Like, I just was massaging more and more and more. So I was pretty burnt out. But I do have to tell you, about 11 years ago, it's when I had my first health crisis. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of that story because I feel like it's connected. And so what happened in 2010, I got some huge reaction and it felt like there were 10 million bugs crawling all over me every single night. And I eventually moved out of that apartment I was in, and it slowly got better. In hindsight, I am thinking it was mold exposure. But then a few months later, I got this other health crisis thing that happened, and I was massaging at the time, and I had to stop for 3 months because I felt like I couldn't breathe. Like, I would get these kind of attack things of where I just felt like I couldn't get a deep breath in. It caused a lot of panic for me because I didn't know what was happening. So I took 3 months off of work. We found that I had in my esophagus, a lot of inflammation. So I had to take care of the reflux I was having. I had to change my diet completely. And I started meditating. I just had to slow down. And I eventually, 6 months after that, I felt on top of the world. I felt really, really good. And then, let's see. Then I had a few other little ones. And then another big one was in 2017. I was sick that year 4 times with respiratory illness. And the last one was flu. And it took me 2 months to get over the flu. And so that was my first, mini CFS. It was a post-viral fatigue, but it only lasted 2 months. But I couldn't, I had the post-exertional malaise and all that. It just wasn't as severe. So what got me through that, which is kind of weird, were digestive enzymes. Because, it messed up my gut. And I guess I just wasn't, digesting protein enough to give me the energy I needed. So I eventually got over that. And then last year, so let me say from 2017 to last year, I just never felt quite right. I could not get myself fully, I was recovered to where I could work again, but I just didn't feel good still. I had a lot of depression, and I would have bouts of just feeling burnout, or I don't know what it was, just phases of not feeling good. And then I would have a phase where, well, maybe I'm feeling better. So that went on forever. And so right before this last thing hit me, the chronic fatigue syndrome, I'm losing my train of thought all of a sudden. Right before that, I felt like I was finally like getting my energy back, my health back. I was like exercising a lot. I was still doing a lot of massage, but I was going on hikes a lot on the weekend, like 12-mile hikes. Like I was doing intense stuff. And then all of a sudden, I went on this one hike and I got this, and I don't know if this is related, but I'm just going to mention it because I thought it was related at first. I got this ant bite on my arm, and my arm like swelled up like big time. And so I went to the doctor the second time this has happened to me. So I went to the doctor because I can't massage with this big, huge arm. And they put me on steroids and then antibiotics. And it was that week. That was on Sunday, and it was like by Tuesday, I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, I'm feeling really weird. I was feeling like I had a lot of stress. So I thought it was the steroid. And then I thought I was having a reaction to the antibiotics. So I called the pharmacy, and they were like, just stop it. That's a weird reaction, but just stop it. So I did. And so that week I started, like, when I was working in between sessions, I would have to do a lot of deep breathing. I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, I was like, am I just really stressed? Is it the steroid? And then by that weekend, I got for 3 days severe headache, and nothing would make it better. I took Advil, Tylenol, except for rest. And so I had to stop working that weekend. And then my headache got better the next week. I know this is a long story, sorry. And it started getting better the next week, but then slowly that weird fatigue, like post-exertional malaise, started coming in. And I noticed it, like, because after work, sometimes I would work out, and I noticed, I was like, okay, something's off. And at that time, I started looking up like exercise intolerance. I'm like, what is going on with me? And then it just got worse and worse to where I was working, but it got to where I would do a massage, have to rest, like lie down for an hour. And then I would do another massage. And my massages went from deep tissue to like very light Swedish. And finally I went to the doctor, and she was like, do you have like an infection? I was like, no, infection? What are you talking about? I don't feel sick. But I was like, I think it's the steroid. Like, I was just blaming that. And so she's like, well, I want to test you for Epstein-Barr virus. So, and she wanted to test me for Lyme. I was like, Lyme? What do you, no, I don't have any of those symptoms. And so she tested me for EBV. And so we found it, but it wasn't active.
Okay.
It was like a past infection. And so she was like, well, let's just say you have mono and rest for 4 weeks. Usually people get over it in 4 weeks. And no, I'm still like going through it. I'm much better than I was last year. I was really, really sick. And my post-exertional malaise was so bad, I thought I was going to die. Like, it was bad. It scared me really bad. That's why I was like, I can't work anymore. I can't do this. I feel like I'm literally going to die. So that's the story.
Wow.
That's part of the story.
Thank you for explaining all of that. It's such a hard question, isn't it? Especially for those of us that have had kind of a long journey. Like, sum up 10 or 20 or how many years of health challenges. Go.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I haven't felt the same since age 35.
Wow. That is a lot. I am so sorry you've had to go through all of this. And so much of that sounds really scary, with the not being able to breathe and all the bugs crawling all over you, never mind all the nightmare of, the chronic fatigue type of stuff. So you got to the point where it sounds like about a year ago you're at your worst. Is that what you said?
Yeah. About a year ago I was at my worst.
And you were you still working then?
Yeah. So it was at the end of February when I started having those beginning symptoms, like the headache And,
Okay.
and then I stopped working the weekend before we went into quarantine for the pandemic. Like, so a few days before everyone else went into quarantine, I went into my own quarantine.
And then, so this was, so the doctor told you to rest for 4 weeks. So is that what you did, or what happened from that point?
Yeah. And she also gave me 2 supplements to take, or like oil of oregano capsules and the lauricidin, what is it called? Monolaurin lauricidin, little tablet things.
Yeah.
So I took those for a while, and then she said, just rest. Yeah. I mean, and so that's what I did. And it took a while for my body to calm down from all the extreme post-exertional malaise I had been experiencing. And I felt horrible. I would wake up in the morning and sometimes like just start crying. I felt horrible, and I couldn't sleep at night all the time. I would wake up in the middle of the night, just felt horrible. And I can't even explain. It's just like a malaise. It's really hard to even explain. I mean, you may have felt that way too. I don't know. And I eventually started doing visualization, like a body meditation. And I call it the happy body meditation. And and I would meticulously go through each body part and say, my feet are happy, my feet are happy, my legs are happy. And I would go through the outside and the inside of my body, and it would take probably about an hour, but I could get in a place of feeling better. Like I would rise above how I felt, my pain and all that. And so it's how I coped with it in the beginning. But that meditation really led me somewhere. Like it really opened my mind. Like I could go from feeling that bad to feeling like in this really like elevated place. That paradox like really was amazing to me.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. That sounds really powerful. I'm so glad you found something that helped. And when I'm listening to you talk, it's a tough thing to describe, isn't it? When I try and explain how I felt when I felt at my worst, I didn't really have vocabulary for it. It was sort of like, I would say, like there was poison running through my body, or just this overall flu-like, but that doesn't even quite, it's just like my whole body was sick and wasn't functioning. Mm-hmm. And when I would crash or have bad post-exertional malaise, you kept saying scary. And that's how I would say it too. It was, I didn't know how to explain it, but I would just say it was scary. I'm like, how bad I feel is scary. It scared me because it felt like it was just a terrifying feeling to be that unwell. And it felt like, is this going to go away? Like if I push past some point of no return, and it's tough. I don't know what words, maybe I need to expand my vocabulary, but to this date, I still don't know how to describe it. Yeah.
For me, that really bad post-exertional malaise was my body didn't have the energy to relax and recover. So I was just like in this like lying there, but I always described it as a full body restless leg syndrome.
Oh, that's a good way to describe it.
maybe not quite as like nervy, but I couldn't relax. And I guess a couple of times in the beginning when I was still working, it would take me 2 hours or more just to like recover. And then I would have and I call it after that, a hangover for days. And so it wasn't quite that. I called my post-exertional malaise an attack because that's what it felt like. And then later I just felt depleted from it, like just tired and depressed. But then I still couldn't sleep well. Like I wasn't the type, because I know I've heard some people with chronic fatigue syndrome, all they want to do is sleep, and they sleep like 18 hours. That was not me. It was like opposite of that. I had trouble sleeping.
And doesn't that feel like the cruelest thing ever? Because we know we need sleep. We know it helps us to recover from things. We feel exhausted, and it just feels like a special kind of torture to be that sick and that exhausted and not even be able to sleep. It's hard.
I know. It's so weird.
So what were you thinking through all of this when this was happening to you?
Well, since I had that pre-mini CFS in 2017 from the post-viral fatigue after the flu, I kind of recognized it a little bit, but it was just more extreme. And since I had gone through those 10 years of like, I went to doctor after doctor after doctor, and no one could help me. So I had to do a lot of research, and I always helped myself along the way. So that's what was in my mind when this happened. I knew I needed to stop, but when it like settled down some, I was like, okay, I just have to learn, like, what do I need to do to get over this? I tried the digestive enzymes again since they worked the last time, and it didn't work this time. I mean, maybe it helped, but it didn't recover me. I thought that was my ticket out.
Like, I know the answer. Good thing I figured this out already.
Yeah. So I had that in my mind. I also was scared, really, really scared. Because my job was massage. It's like, I can't work. I don't have savings. What am I going to do? Luckily, I had my mom to help. And then we got some of the pandemic relief money, you know, that helped. So that was really, really stressful. And that's the unfair part. Like, you're trying to heal, and then you have to worry about, like, how are you going to, like, support your family? And I have a son who's a teenager, but yeah, so that was really scary. And then a few years ago, like before I even had all my health crises, I had a client of mine who had recovered from chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. She had had it for over 20 years, and she told me she recovered. And I had already known about chronic fatigue and how there was no cure. And when she told me that, I was like, that's years ago. That's how my mind opened to, like, people are getting better, you know? But I still in the beginning had it in my mind, there's no cure. I don't want chronic fatigue syndrome. Like, I kept fighting that, like, cause for a while I was like, okay, I'm just still recovering. It's post-viral fatigue. Like, I'm just still recovering. And finally I just had to say, I guess I have chronic fatigue syndrome. And I went to the doctor a little bit, but since all my history of the doctors not helping, I gave that up very quickly and just tried to find solutions for myself.
Yeah, a lot of us seem to get to that place, unfortunately. It's just, you know, why do I keep going back? It's not getting anywhere. The tests are coming back normal, and no one really seems to know what to do with it. So what happened? You had the 4 weeks where you thought maybe you could rest it out and it was mono. You tried the digestive enzymes. What happened from there?
So I guess it was about, I'm not going to remember exactly, but I think it was about 2 months of just not doing much. And my mom came over and cooked a whole bunch of food for me one time. My sister ordered like a week of like food to be delivered to my house. My son, I got him on board to cook some. So I had some help in that way. And then I just did the best I could, like with cooking, like I would chop and then have to rest and then go back and finish it. And, so anyways, somewhere in that time frame, 2 months or 3 months, I can't remember, I started reading this book called Brave New Medicine. I think it's what it's called. Have you heard of that?
No, I don't think so.
And I think it's I should have looked this up. I think it's by Cynthia Lee, L-I.
Okay.
And that book really helped me. She had Hashimoto's and chronic fatigue syndrome for like 10 years. And she was a Western trained medical doctor, and that wasn't helping her. So she had to discover her own way of healing. And so she lays it out in the book. And she talked about Qigong. Like, she used Qigong a lot to help her heal. And then another thing I learned from that book was a morning routine. She kept talking about that. And I've heard about morning routines before, but I decided to try it. I was like, well, let me try this morning routine thing. And so in the morning, I found like a really simple Qigong video. And so that was part of my morning routine. And then I did some gratitudes. And then I did something else I can't remember right now. I guess I said everything. And so I started that, and immediately I had more energy. I mean, not recovered energy, but I felt I gained some energy, and I was amazed. I was like, just from a morning routine, like I could feel that much better. Like,
wow,
that really amazed me. And so I did that for a while, and I did start walking really early in the beginning because I was already a hiker. So I already kind of had that built into my system. So, but when I first went on the walk, it was just not far. It was in the woods. Luckily, I live close to nature, and about 10 minutes. And I walked normal pace, and I felt horrible after. And so I decided to try it again, but I walked slow, like half the speed, like a grandma. And then I noticed I gained some energy from doing that. I was like, that's amazing. Like, just slowing at half the speed, I actually gained a little bit of energy. Not that I felt super great, and so I would come back home and made sure I rested. And so it was a process, of building that up. And I love nature so much. And it's not just the walking. Nature provided like the stress relief. And it just I felt like that alone, just being in nature, was healing me. And it helped calm that intense like toxicity I felt. Like that would dissipate when I was out in nature. And the like extreme stress I felt could dissipate when I was out in nature. And while I was walking, I would just have gratitude for everything. I didn't have headphones on when I was walking. I just made a point to connect to nature. So after I felt like I could walk a little bit more, my other challenge was, okay, so I'm going to walk a little bit. And then I found a tree that I loved, and I sat there for a while. So I just kind of extended my time out in between walking and just sitting and resting. And that really helped. And I just noticed immediately it was giving me energy and just dissipating all that stuff I said before. So that happened in the beginning. And then, I don't know, somewhere a little bit after that time. So I started since that was helping, I was gaining momentum, okay, I can get over this, and so I don't know if you've heard of Brendan Burchard.
No.
Yeah, he's like a high performance coach. Okay. And since I was resting a lot, I was on my phone a lot and found him on Facebook. and he talked about morning routines. So I learned even more about morning routines, and he's adamant about creating a schedule. So I actually bought his schedule planner, and I wrote out my schedule for the day. So I was like, okay, morning routine at this time. And then I'm going to rest, and then I have to have breakfast. I wrote every single thing out and followed it meticulously for 4 months straight. And then I made sure in between activities, I built a morning routine, an afternoon routine, and then an evening routine. And then in the afternoon routine, my goal was to get my parasympathetic nervous system. That was my goal all the time, to try to get in that state as much as possible, because it helps you heal. And so that's what I would do in the afternoon. If I felt really bad, I would just pop in my headphones and listen to binaural beats. And it really helped. It really helped me feel better. Or I couldn't do a lot of deep breathing in the beginning, because that actually gave me post-exertional malaise. I know, it was so weird. But eventually, months later, I could start incorporating breathing. So I just did, I learned all about the parasympathetic nervous system, what we need to relax. And so I just did different things like that, different things I found on the internet that they were talking about it. I can't think of everything I did right now. So anyways, that was my program. I call it my program that I built for myself. And I swear I did it for 4 months straight. And I excelled. First it was hard, but my recovery excelled. I'm not good with percentages, so I can't even tell you that. But and I wasn't fully recovered, but I would say a lot of my healing came during that. And I was super motivated just because I felt horrible, you know? And then I needed to support my family. I needed to get better.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, this is amazing. This is fascinating. It's really in line with, I mean, there's a lot that I've coming to learn and understand about healing that I didn't fully get when I was doing my own recovery. But, you know, so much of what I read is about the importance of supporting our bodies and autonomic nervous system and keeping stress down, and how things like being in nature and meditation and all of this are super powerful in that they, you know, they put our body in the state that it needs to be in, because our bodies are really powerful healers under the right conditions. So I think a lot of it, why a lot of this gets dismissed, is because it doesn't seem like any of these things on their own should be able to heal you. But it's not that, you know, that they're healing you. It's just, you're just putting your body in a state where it can do what's been blocked, you know, for whatever reason, why we didn't get over these things that some other people get past. So yeah, this is really fascinating. I think this stuff is really easy to dismiss. So I just love the more people that are talking about it, and we can get it out there and be like, this stuff really, really can help. I'm so glad. And having a schedule is so important for me too. That was such a massive part of my journey. So I love that you shared that. It's just, you need to have a plan. And even if much of that schedule just says rest, like, you need to have a focused plan of what you're doing.
Yeah. And, you know, I had crashes throughout all that. You know, when you're trying to challenge yourself, you're going to have crashes. And so there was times where 2 weeks I wasn't doing my plan, but I put my binaural beats in, like, that. If that's the most I can do, then that's what I'm going to do in that 2 weeks. But
yeah, that's such an important part about the plan and the schedule. Have a plan, put it there, but you got to be so flexible with it and not stress if you can't. Like, sometimes the plan has to go out the window, and that's okay. But at least start there.
Yeah, and then just get back to it, like, when you can, you know, and just challenge yourself. Like, another thing I thought about was, okay, my body, you know, I'm down in the crash. I physically feel horrible, but my mind's going with it. Like, I'm feeling depressed. And I knew it was all just part of all the fatigue I'm feeling. And so I started challenging that idea. I was like, okay, if my body goes down, my mind goes with it. I know I can't really bring my body up a whole lot, but can I bring my mind up just a little bit, and will it raise my body? So I started challenging that idea. And that's when actually the binaural beats, I started doing that, because I was like, well, the most I can do is just lie here and put headphones in. And I just was amazed that worked so well. And so I noticed with that plan I had in mind, after a while, my crashes got better. They weren't as intense. And they lessened. I'm not familiar with this. What is it? Binaural beats? Can you explain a bit what that is? It's different brain waves, like delta, gamma, beta, theta brain waves. And there are certain waves that will cause a certain response in your body to relax, or I think delta, I'm not going to remember all this. I should have looked it up, but delta maybe helps you, like, get in a place of learning. I don't know. So the different waves help bring out different things in you. And so I bought some online, by Kelly Howell, I think is her name. And so I just had it on my phone. So these are stereo headphones, you know, my iPhone headphones. You got to make sure you have stereo headphones, and just listening to that, like, I had to turn it kind of down because I was like sensitive to even the sound, but because it's kind of a really deep, intense sound, but in a way that was kind of, you know, a nurturing feeling for me. And then just the act of just lying down is going to get your parasympathetic system, like, activated too. So that, combined with just that, like, kind of soothing, deep, nurturing sound, just helped me. And I also used it because I had a lot of brain fog and could not focus. So when I needed to focus, I had another one that I used, and I put it on and it helped me work better. Not like perfectly, but it helped. So Yeah, I mean, it worked for me. I tell everyone about these binaural beats.
That's really interesting. I'm going to be looking it up once we're done talking. I'm really curious to learn more. This is a new one for me. I love too. I don't know if you're noticing this too, but there just seems to be a bit more of a focus, a shift for people to appreciate the need to incorporate, purposeful or real rest into their day. I think a lot of us think of rest as like watching Netflix or scrolling through social media, but your body isn't in the state it needs to be in when you're doing those things to, to really get the most healing in. So yeah, I think the more tools like this that people have, the better. So that's really great. I'm glad that you shared it. So where are you now with your health? How has it progressed from there?
Well, now I am a lot better. I've kind of left out some things I did too along the way. I went to two different chiropractors, like holistic chiropractors. The first one, it was kind of like, have you heard of muscle testing before?
I have. I don't know a ton about it, but I have heard of it. Yes.
It's kind of along those lines, but doesn't look exactly like that. But she could, like, I would lie face down and she would do some adjustments on me. It was very subtle, but, she also could assess what I needed, like with supplements through looking at my spine and the way I really don't know what she was doing, but but so she would be like, take these supplements and stuff. And, that stuff is always weird to me, even though I've done muscle testing. Like this is probably my third time and it's still weird to me, but I just like, well, I think it's helping. Like, but she's the one that got it really in my head that my immune system, like if we support our bodies, we can heal, So even though I knew that before, but she, like, working with her really got that idea more ingrained into me. So that's what I really learned from her. Like, I improved some with her, but I eventually switched to another chiropractor. I actually saw 3 chiropractors, to another one. And this was just over Zoom. And I wish I could remember his name right now. I know some people have probably heard of him. I was working with the lady in his office, but they do a lot of parasite cleanses and stuff like that. So we were working on that, and they did an oats test. Have you heard of that before?
No.
Or organic acids test. It shows you how your mitochondria is doing. It can show if there's some bacteria and fungus in your gut. It also looks at some of your norepinephrine, dopamine, all that stuff. And in that, what we discovered is that this might be too much technical stuff, but in that we discovered that I had a lot of dopamine, but it wasn't converting to norepinephrine. And I looked that up because that's just what I do. Like, if they tell me something, I go and research it like crazy. And what I learned in that, some of the symptoms of low epinephrine is post-exertional malaise. I was like, whoa, that's weird. Yeah. And some of what can cause that conversion not to happen is like bacteria in your gut. But there's, I think, a couple of other things. I can't remember right now what that is. So that's really interesting to me. And that's always in my head now. Like, does the neurotransmitters have something to do with, all that post-exertional malaise? And I'm sure it's different for everyone. And then in December, so I didn't stay with that chiropractor very long because I found another one online, and he lives here in Austin. So I started with him. He had a 4-month program, and he had like a program built more in the line of what I had already been doing myself with that whole kind of framework, except his was on steroids. And part of what it was oxygen exercise therapy. Have you heard of that?
No. Man, you're teaching me a lot today. This is amazing. Thank you. What is that?
Well, you're like on a stationary bike, and they set you up to an oxygen tank. And so I think we started out with some oxygen, and I would pedal. And then they would take the oxygen away. And, you know, I'm still pedaling the whole time, and they're putting the oxygen on and away, and all in a span of 15 minutes. And so the oxygen, what oxygen can do for our muscles and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it helped oxygenate your whole body, all the cells in your body. So I had more energy to keep going and exercise. And taking it away, like just the going back and forth just helped build that low oxygen, more oxygen muscle, I guess, for lack of a better word. And so I didn't have any post-exertional malaise after that.
Really?
I mean, not in general. I'm just saying after that activity. Okay. I could do like on a bike pretty intensely after a while. I started off really slow because I was scared, but I got pretty intense with it, like pretty fast, and I felt fine after. I didn't have to rest or anything. And so
That's
I think
amazing.
Yeah, and I've actually looked up before I even went to him. I had found a study that talked about that for chronic fatigue syndrome, oxygen exercise therapy. So, wow. And then he also did some chiropractic adjustments and then tons of supplements because he was trying to heal, like balance out my hormones and my gut brain axis. And he's a functional neurologist chiropractor. And so he would do some neurology stuff with me too. And he kept saying neurologically, I was fine. And he like had a lot of hope for me because he felt like I was like moving forward pretty fast in that. So after a month into that, my post-exertional malaise was severely reduced, like even without the oxygen, like just here at my house, like, and so that was another like big leap in recovery. So I ended that in March, maybe, end of March. And so then I got, can I say the word vaccine on here?
Yes. I'm sure I'll get all sort of flags and warning things below the video about where to get information, but.
And I got the vaccine in April and the J&J, and I felt horrible for the first 2 weeks. I felt like I went backwards, and I have been on those forums, people talking about with chronic fatigue syndrome, how they felt after. So I went back some, and it took me about a month to recover from that vaccine. But after that, and I don't know if it was the vaccine, but I have heard stories of this. My brain fog has been way, way, way better since then. Like I can actually work now. And concentrate and do work at the computer and create and I get tired, but my brain's functioning, it feels normal. And so now what is it? It's June now. So I just been back and forth with, I felt like I had to build myself back up again a little bit. I didn't crash all the way back to the beginning, but I had to build myself up from the vaccine a little bit, just start my program again, And so I still have a morning routine. I go on walks out in nature. I've gotten up to where I can walk 4 miles now. And that was from 10 minutes of slow walking to now 4 miles of normal walking. And now I've moved to a new place and there's hills. So I actually can only walk about 2 miles now, but because I'm doing a lot of hills. Because I'm noticing I am getting kind of tired after that, but I can rest for an hour or take a nap and then I'll feel better. So I'm much more functional than I was.
Yeah, that's a really long way that you've come. You've made a ton of progress. That's amazing. Yeah. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
You're not the first person. I mean, this is all just anecdotal, but yeah, other people have shared how they've gotten the vaccine, and in my Facebook group, some people have shared, and yeah, that they feel better. They've had alleviation of different symptoms, and yeah, again, just anecdotal, but it definitely you're not the first person to say that. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So, I'm just so happy. It's just so nice to hear all these stories, even if you don't feel you're 100% fully there yet. You've just made so much progress. And I would imagine just life is just so much less stressful. And it sounds like you've learned, like so many of us, so much along the way through all of this about just health and taking care of yourself and stress. And like, what are some of the biggest learnings you think you've taken away from all of this?
Well, when I first had to stop everything is when it may have taken like a week or two for me to like realize how stressed I was in my life. And how unbalanced my life was. So that was kind of my first lesson. When I stopped, I just was aware of like, whoa, I just really need to change, you know, to have my life more balanced. And so through this journey and all the getting energy from all these different things, I've learned a lot about energy. Like, more, you know, because we're so sensitive to energy in that moment. And it's just so apparent what is giving you the energy and what is depleting you. It's just so extreme. So I learned a lot about energy, and energy, not just physical, it's mental, spiritual, energetic, you know, and your body. And I've just learned, and I knew this already, but I just wasn't applying it. And it just wasn't like, I felt like I was going, you know, I would exercise and eat well. And I was like, that's good enough, right? Like I would meditate sometimes, but from this journey, I was like really, really applying all of it, and throughout the whole day, you know, not just meditation here sometimes, you know,
right.
It just like I've built my day to be that. And so I've learned a lot from that, and that I'm more powerful than I realized, you know, and that I can heal my body. You know, I knew I've healed my body in the past, but this was just a whole new learning with it. And I went to health coach, like I started health coach training in 2019. And we learned all this stuff in there, because the training was not just about food. It was your whole life. Like you have the circle of life. Like you have nutrition, you have your relationships, you have, you know, movement, and, you know, everything that makes up your life. And that is what nutrition really is. All of those things. And so I knew it, but I still was just so heavy on the nutrition side, because I've been studying that for over 20 years. It's just a huge passion of mine. And this, always called it my boot camp. my like getting better, or my chronic fatigue syndrome boot camp is what I called it. Because I was learning so much. And so those ideas that I had learned the previous year got really planted into me. It's like, okay, you want to learn about this? We're going to get you to learn about this.
What better way to learn than firsthand experience?
Yeah. That's the best way I learn. But yeah, anyways, so those are some big, I'm sure I've learned a lot that I can't even think about all of it right now. And in the beginning of all this, I was getting into a lot of spiritual stuff. Like I just didn't want to watch TV. It just that made me more stressed. And I was following a lot of people online, like in joining Zooms with them. And luckily it was during the pandemic. There was so much support available just because of that. And so I joined a lot of groups and got a lot of spiritual support. And so I just kept up with that. And in the beginning, and people laughed at me, but I was like, I feel like I have recovered my soul. I felt that was like one of the first things I felt. And that was so true. And then later on through it, I realized I'm not dreaming anymore. I have dreams. So I started dreaming again. And I've just grown I just want to cry even saying that. I've just grown like really exponentially through this. Like it's so hard, and I'm still scared that I'm not going to be normal again, but I've come so far, and it's like I needed it, or just, you know.
I do. I think I do.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure you hear the same, you know, with your work as a health coach, but it's something that I hear from a lot of people. It's a strange thing to wrap your head around. And I think people who haven't gone through something like this, it probably sounds a bit strange, to put it mildly. But yeah, I used to call it growth boot camp. So something similar.
Well, there you go. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a transformative experience. It's such a weird relationship to have with this experience, isn't it? Because it's horrific and hellish and a nightmare, but also, brings so many good things. It's a conflicting experience to have.
Oh, and part of in the beginning, I started watching your videos. I forgot to mention that. And I started doing your stretching video. And I would do that in the afternoon. I would just feel so blah. And I would do that and gain energy. So watching all your YouTube stuff helped me too. You're part of my journey.
Oh, that's so nice to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And obviously the stretching helped me too. That's why stretching was massive for me. I don't know what it was, but my body was just tight, and it just, nothing too intense, but just some mild, gentle, short stretching. Really.
Yeah. I was scared to even try it. I would, I had trauma. I'm sure a lot of us trauma to try an activity because of how bad the post-exertional malaise was. But I tried it. I just went for it, and then I felt better.
That's amazing.
It's like, Sorry, went back a bit. So
I'm curious, when you're sharing this, you were talking about how much these experiences change us. Was it your health journey that led you to do the health coach training and to sort of pivot your career path that way, or what made you pursue that?
Oh, okay. Well, like I said, I've been studying nutrition on my own since my early 20s. And so I've had that interest for a long time. And then when I had my son, I guess in my late 20s, I had him at age 27. I got even more into like nutrition. I started reading a lot of books by Dr. Andrew Weil. Have you heard of him?
Nope. Yep. The learning just keeps on going.
So I started reading a lot of his books. And it was around that time, I was also just started massage school when my son was a baby. Okay. And it was around that time, like, I started massage school because I knew I wanted to get into healing. And I saw that, and I was really interested in massage, but I saw it as my, like, gateway into that world. And I remember telling my husband at the time, I'm not married anymore, but I was like, I really want to be a nutritionist. That's where my passion really, really is. But I don't want to go to school. I don't want to go to dietetic school. I've already spent too much money in college. And so I was just like, I'm just not going to do it. So I did massage, for 14 years. But during, I guess, the beginning of that, my clients would come in, and I just really wanted to tell them, like, how they should be eating at home. And like, you can't just come in for a massage and expect everything to go away in this hour. Like, you got to be doing stuff at your house. Like, so I would say as much as I could for massage therapists to them. But it was around that time I was like, I really want to be a wellness coach. It just like that word just popped in my mind. I have never heard of that word before, and it wasn't a big thing around that time. But I was like, I don't know how to do that. So it just was a dream that I just kind of hung on to. And then a few years ago, I saw an ad I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. It's called IIN. So I saw an ad for that. I was like, that's it. That's what I've been wanting to do for years. And my motivation is because I want to empower people, like, to take care of themselves. Like, you have the power. You don't have to be on all these medications. I mean, maybe sometimes you do, but you can, like, do as much as you can at your house in your life to feel better and to prevent going to the doctor, So I still want to teach people. Like, that's a huge drive of mine, to empower people. So, and then when chronic fatigue syndrome hit, I got, like, even more motivated. I was like, I want to help chronic fatigue syndrome people, like, because I've learned so much, and there's, doctors are saying there's no cure. We can't help you. And it's like, at least try, at least try to support your body and get it started on its healing journey, Maybe you still need to see a doctor. I don't know. But do what you can at home to support it, you know?
I do. Oh, Ginger, I think that's such a good message. And I think so many of us are taught, you know, in the societies we grow up in, when it comes to our health, to hand our power over to other people and wait for them to fix us or wait for them to figure it out. So yeah, it's just, I think sometimes it can be a bit scary at first to feel like, what? Is this mostly on me? But then when you realize, wait, this is on me. This is great. You know, I have the power to make changes. I have the power to help myself. So man, I think that's really amazing.
You don't have to have a bunch of medical bills.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, this has been amazing. I always, when I do these interviews, I just want to keep asking questions and keep people, I could keep people here for hours if it was really up to me, but I know that isn't really helpful for anybody to have an 8-hour video.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they would get tired of it after a while.
As much as I have so many more questions. I guess, you know, usually I just wrap up by asking people, you know, for people watching this who are currently facing these kind of conditions, you know, what would you say to them, or what suggestions or thoughts or insights would you have, for people who are facing this? Yeah,
well, definitely get support. And there's support in so many different ways. There's your wonderful Facebook group that I love so much because it's so positive. There's that. You can hire people, coaches, you know, alternative practitioners. Get your family on board, you know, as much as you can. Like with my mom, I just had to calmly explain to her over, because she couldn't understand, you know, chronic fatigue syndrome. People just think I just want to lie down and sleep. She's like, well, if you just lie down all day, of course you're going to be tired. I'm just like, so I just, luckily I didn't have the energy to fight. So I just calmly explained to her over and over. So that's like another thing, like try to educate your family as much as you can. And if they're not like supporting you, just search for support. Like Facebook is a huge place to start. And then just experiment, challenge your thinking, challenge your beliefs. If you've heard that you can't heal, there's no cure, but you've seen other people saying they're getting better, try to challenge that. Like, can you open yourself to the idea a little bit? You know, can this work for me? I do that a lot. Like I heard a new thing recently about your brain causing all of this. And I've fought against that idea so much. And I do believe people with the brain retraining get better, but I haven't fully believed it for me. And so I'm in the process of like expanding just a little bit, asking, can that be possible for me? You know, I think it's a good place to start. And not, you know, have like a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. You know, the fixed is like, no, there's no cure. I can't get out of this, you know, as opposed to what I was just saying, like question your beliefs, challenge it a little bit. And what chronic fatigue syndrome is just one big, huge experiment. You're just trying, you hear this, so you try it. Is it going to work for you? You know? So I don't know. I guess that's all I have to say, but
that's a lot. That is perfectly said. Ginger, thank you for that. I think that's really helpful and really insightful and just, really well said. If people want to reach you or find you or learn more, how can they do that?
Right now, all I have is an email address. It's called helpcoach@gingerdorsey.com. And I did have a Facebook group last year because I was like, I want to help people. And I started the Facebook group, but you know, along when you're putting yourself out there, which I know that you could probably relate to this, comes a lot of your limiting beliefs and fears start hitting you. Yeah. And so that was happening to me. And so I went back into my shell. I was like, I can't do this. Plus I didn't have a whole lot of energy. So I did have a Facebook group, but I will soon in the next few months get one going again, and a Facebook page. And I do have an Instagram page. It's @GingerDorsey1. It's not highly active right now, but I do have some things on it. But that's where I'm growing to, is into that eventually. But right now you can just email me. And if you're curious about health coaching, how it could help you, we can have a chat. No cost, just have a chat. And I really want to talk to as many people as I can. If you just want to contact me, or if you are interested in these Facebook groups that I'm going to open up later, just send me an email and say I'm interested. I won't spam you, just say I'm interested in the Facebook group, and I will keep your name to the side. I'm also working on a course. So I'm in the process of doing that. I can't tell you when it will be done. It will be pretty much laying out what I've learned. And it will be a low cost as compared to health coaching. It's a little bit more expensive. So this is lower cost and a way for people to try out some of these ideas. And you'll have like me as a guide with videos in the course. So, and if you're interested in that, just email me at thehealthcoach@gingerdorsey.com, and I'll put you on the list and send that out to you when it's ready.
Amazing. I'm so grateful for people like you, Ginger, that are doing this. As I'm sure or all too aware, there are just so many people out there that are facing these kinds of conditions, and it's just can be such a frustrating and scary and at times hopeless feeling, to be going through it. So it's so wonderful that that you're doing this kind of work, and that there's so many people out there that are starting to give this kind of support. And we talk about how this is, we need to feel empowered and we can do this ourselves, but it doesn't mean we have to do it all by ourselves.
Right.
Build yourself up a support system, and have someone to support you and guide you, and someone to bounce ideas off you and just help you with all of that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and if you're surrounded by people that are pushing you down, you've got to reach out to something different, to a different mindset,
Oh, absolutely. I always say, down is an easier direction to go. So if you're surrounded by people who are at all just in a bad place, if they're at all toxic to you in any way, if they're all negative, or even if they're just people who aren't taking care of themselves, health isn't a priority. Like it's a lot of work, and it takes discipline to build yourself back up and make these changes. So who we surround ourselves with is so important, because down is always an easier direction to go. So if you're trying to hold yourself up and keep growing and keep aiming towards your goals, when everyone else around you isn't on that same wavelength, I think you're not setting yourself up for success there. So yeah, really good point.
Yeah. I've had to surround myself with so many different kinds of people this year, like personal development, different practitioners, and so different books, your YouTube video, or YouTube channel. Sorry.
Yeah. I think it makes a really big difference. Well, thank you, Ginger. I very much appreciate this, for taking the time and, to do this and to get some of your story out and share a bit of what you learned. I know it means a lot to people. I get a lot of messages from people saying how much they appreciate it. So I really want to say, from my heart, thank you. Thank you for doing this today. It's really great. I've learned a ton. I'm sure others have too.
Yeah, thank you, Raelan. I appreciate that you contacted me.
Yeah, and then as always, to people watching, we'd love to hear your thoughts or your experiences on any of the things that we've talked about in the video comments. I'm sure both Ginger and I are happy to respond to any questions or comments there as well. And, if you liked this video, I'll link up here on the screen somewhere. I've got a playlist with a whole bunch of other interviews, kind of like this one. So yeah, that's it. Thank you again, Ginger. Thank you everyone who's watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Thank you.